everyone, my name is Zenia, and my guest here today is wrestler, producer, as seen on WWE, AEW, RH, First Wrestling, and everywhere in the world, Ariya Daivari.
Hey everybody, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for being here.
Of course, I've been looking forward to doing this.
Yeah, absolutely, me too.
Yeah.
This has been a long time in the making, actually.
Yeah, right, we're finally getting around to it.
Is this a secret that you refused the first time I asked you for an interview?
So, I don't remember this. Apparently you reached out, you said you want to interview me. I don't remember this happening, but if I did, I'm sorry. So this is me, me making up for it.
Don't be sorry, it's fine. At least this old...
When was it? When did you reach out?
Maybe like 3 years ago.
3 years ago. My bad.
That was a long time.
My bad, everybody.
Okay, so let's jump right into it.
Let's get to it.
So you actually recently put out a post on Instagram about how you've been dealing with a neck injury.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, as a wrestler, you kind of owe it to your audience to be open about your injuries and about the stuff that you're dealing with like that? And how does it make you feel that you shared it openly?
Yeah, you know, so I was thinking about it for a while because I have gotten like some tweets and stuff about that, about like not wrestling and this and that. And like the more I thought about it, I didn't want people to think that like, oh, he's just kind of like whatever, he's not wrestling anymore. Like no, there's actually a reason why I'm not wrestling right now. It's just the old neck injury that kind of comes and goes, but the older we get, our bodies get more beat up, and the longer I've been doing this for 17 years now, so I don't feel like I'm obligated, because I know some wrestlers are very opposite about that. They're very private when they're hurt and something like that. They just disappear and people wonder where they are and everyone speculates and all that kind of stuff. Like, I've always been a pretty open person. Like, I don't have things to hide, and I also think this isn't something I need to hide or whatever, but I was just thinking about it and I decided, I'm just gonna share with my audience, my fans, anyone who gives a crap, that like, yeah, I'm just dealing with a little bit of a neck injury right now, and I think it's case by case. Some people want to keep their stuff private, some people want to talk about it. Everybody's different, you know.
Yeah. Also in that same post, you mentioned, it's a quote, that you haven't wrestled a real match in a while.
Right.
You've done a 10-man tag, a 6-man tag, a battle royal that we saw, which was, again, in my opinion, one of the best battle royals,
thank you.
Ever, probably in AEW. So when you don't really get to wrestle one-on-one match, but you're still on screen, how do you manage to like keep the viewer's attention, or is that not the goal? Are you not the center of attention right now? And like, how do you?
Yeah, you know, so you explained it perfectly. Sometimes it's not about you, you know. So we did a 6-man tag, and that, again, it wasn't to protect me. That's why we did it. We just need a 6-man tag to do, and luckily that is a match where if you're hurt or something, you have 2 other people who can do all the work. So thank you to Josh and Tony who did all the work in that match. But yeah, it's just, when you're not doing singles matches, it's just a little bit different. When it's singles match, just you, they're obviously much longer. When I get tired, I can just tag out to Tony and let him, and then vice versa and stuff like that. So I guess I shouldn't have said real matches. I should have said singles matches, because obviously a 10-man tag, these are real matches, but just my role was so limited in it that like when the match is over, I still have like my baby oil on me. Like, I didn't even bust a sweat, you know? So it's just one of those things that, like, for my own personal like gratification, not doing singles matches or tag matches, it doesn't feel like I'm doing like to my full capability, you know what I'm saying? So that's why in that battle royal, you know, we try to when we came up with the battle royal, it was actually gonna be like, all right, you know, Daivari's hurt, just get him out as quickly as possible. And then like I was like, no, again, let's try to make a little moment of this. You know, we're working with the Lucha Bros and knowing what they can do. I was like, you know what, I have a good idea. We'll do this, with the kick, all that kind of stuff, and just try to make a little moment out of the little bit of screen time you have. And that's a little piece of advice I give to all younger wrestlers. You know, I know sometimes when you come from the independents, when I came from the independents, it was wrestle 20, 30 minutes, go as long as you want. You know, sometimes when you get to television wrestling, you have very, very finite TV time, and you have to just kind of pick and choose your spots and do your best to try to make it memorable as possible. In those matches, you know, that battle royal, I wanted to do that just because it was a pay-per-view and that, you know, that matters. But sometimes the other matches, like when you're dealing with like a neck injury and stuff, you're not checked out, like you don't care, but you're just kind of like I got other things on my mind, like staying safe. So like, let's just get through this match. Josh, Tony, they can shine as much as they want, and I'm just gonna take it easy until we figure out what the hell's going on with my neck, you know?
Yeah. And we did mention the six-man tag, and you're a part of a faction currently, Varsity Athletes. And before that, it was or still is Trustbusters.
Yeah, no, Trustbusters are still around. I mean,
Are you still with them though? That's
I'm their leader. I give them their guidance.
Spiritual leader. So pretty much ever since you came into AEW/RH, you've been in factions.
Yeah, they're working nonstop.
Especially like in the earlier days of AEW, a lot of people had a lot to say about how many factions there are in AEW.
Right,
so can you talk about the importance of factions a little bit and how is AEW, is it a faction-based promotion?
So that's one thing that I actually really, really like about AEW, because I know in WWE they weren't big on doing factions more than three. They did trios, they New Day, Shield, Wyatt family. They always thought 3 people was enough. But when I grew up watching wrestling, it was DX and the NWO and Evolution and Four Horsemen. Like, it can be more than 3 people. So I actually really enjoyed the fact when I was watching AEW, when I was in WWE, seeing like, oh man, they're doing so many groups and factions. And it's how you get everybody on TV. Like, I totally understand. At the time, Wednesday Dynamite, we only have 2 hours of TV. You can't get everybody on the show. But when Jericho is wrestling and he has 3 or 4 of his guys on the outside, now you got 3 or 4 guys on the outside, and that's how you slowly establish these people, introduce them to the audience. When I came in, not everybody knew who I was, not everybody was 205 fans and this and that, so...
Which is a shame. Everybody should have been 205 fans.
But the people who did know me, they may not knew, they didn't know like Parker, maybe they didn't know Vinny as much, or maybe they didn't know Slim J as much. Obviously they knew Sonny, but like that was just people that Tony wanted to use, but he was just trying to think, what's the best way I can utilize these people? If I put them in a group together, then when Ari's wrestling, then they can come out with them, and we just kind of get everybody more screen time. So I'm personally a fan of factions because I also think it can help establish like the next person. When the person, like Sammy Guevara, for example, he's someone who I feel like Jericho's really helped get him to the next level, and now he's kind of a big part of AEW. So that's a perfect example of how factions can really help out guys on the undercard. I always think it's good to have like a bigger main talent, and then he helps all the other people out. Like I said, I know I'm not f***ing anybody, but I was the kind of established WWE name, I guess you can say, and then you put people with me and we try to bring them up too, so, and then same with the Varsity Athletes. It's me and Tony, and we have Josh and Mark. Like, we can all be on TV. If Josh has a match, then we can go out with them. If I have a match, they can come out with me, or a tag match or whatever. So I just like that it gets more people on TV. Even if you're standing ringside, having your face on TV, it's very important. Like, people don't understand how important like being on weekly television is, so that's kind of the good thing about having factions in AEW.
Yeah, and also I know if it's a direct connection, but like you mentioned, WWE usually stops at 3 people for some reason, and when you think WWE, you think more mainstream wrestling. Yeah. But say New Japan, that's definitely targeted at a more sophisticated wrestling fans, super faction based. So many factions, and they're all huge. So it makes sense actually.
And that was one. I'm guessing maybe that's where Tony Khan kind of got the idea of saying, hey, there's a lot of factions in New Japan, and usually it's a lot of the young boys or whatever, like being ringside for the main guy who's wrestling, and it just kind of, like I said, it helps get these. And another thing too is that not that some of the people in AEW are so new to the point where just like they need to sit there and watch, but like it helps when you're standing ringside and you're watching someone like a Chris Jericho wrestle. You can't not learn from it, So that's another positive side from having all these factions in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And your current faction, like we mentioned, Varsity Athletes, like you guys are doing a little bit of a fitness moment. Some segments where you make sure that the AEW fans move
make their working out,
make us work out a little bit. So I guess the question is, like, why? How did this idea come? Like, what happened? Why are we doing this?
People who know me and Tony Nese were like best friends. We became friends through WWE. That's where we met, and then we started working together in WWE, and we just kind of had a bond from there. So when I initially came to AEW, that was the first thing I asked to do. Like, hey, I'd like to tag with Tony again. And it took a little bit of time, but we got there eventually. One thing me and Tony bonded on when we first met each other is we were both personal trainers at Lifetime Fitness. Me in Minnesota, him in Long Island. And we were just kind of joking about all of us, the Cruiserweight Classic, what do we all do for jobs and this and that. And he said that, like, oh shit, I do that too. So that was kind of our common ground right there. So we both were personal trainers before WWE. I actually debuted on Raw on Monday, and then I had a red eye home, and Tuesday I was back in the gym like training my clients and stuff like that. This all kind of happened on just like a happy accident. Tony got called into a house show last second, and right before he went out there, they're like, hey, we need you to cut a promo too. And like Tony admits, he's not really a promo guy. And he's like, oh shit, like what am I gonna talk about? And just on the fly, he's like, I'm gonna make this crowd work out. Like he literally just like dug into a real thing because he does 450 Fit now. He still does online training. And he's like, I'm just gonna make the crowd work out just to like, more or less kill some time and, try to have an engaging promo. And it turned out to be awesome. And it got a really good reaction. And when he got to the back, Tony Khan loved it and was like, this is it, which funny enough, this is kind of the shit we've been telling him to do all the time, like in WWE and stuff like that, but he was always, he was afraid it was going to kind of like typecast him. As just like, I want to be like a fitness guy, like personally, I always thought Simon Dean in WWE was awesome. I just think it was a gimmick that was a little ahead of its time, like in 2005. And even when Nice initially didn't want to do it in WWE, I still feel like it maybe would have been a little bit ahead of its time because now in 2023, fitness is everywhere. Everyone knows what a protein shake is and all that kind of stuff. And we see, you go on Instagram and you see all these people working out this and that. So I think now that it's very much like popular culture now, that now when Tony does it, I think people are like, oh, it's the fitness guy, So I really enjoy the fact that it's engaging with the crowd more than just, hey, you suck, boo, this and that, like making people.
You suck and you also have fun.
Yeah, right, yeah. But it's funny, like, even though like we're bad guys, everyone still loves to participate. Yeah. Everyone get on your feet, the whole crowd stands up, everyone starts doing it. Yeah.
It's so funny because like I feel what makes a good like heel promo is when like you're mad that they're not wrong.
Yeah, right,
It's like, we all have to move on, I guess.
Truth hurts.
Yeah, truth hurts. And it's funny that you mentioned that fitness nowadays is everywhere and it's so mainstream because I feel like in wrestling it's been a little bit of an opposite tendency where like, say like Alex Hammerstone posted recently about how he's told to not let the body guy type die because, currently wrestling is not as focused on appearances, I guess. It's
aesthetics,
not anymore, 6 foot plus.
Of course,
Big muscular guys. But like you said, for you, it's very much rooted in real life. Mm-hmm. And we all see your fitness posts on Instagram also. And, for you, it's a big part of how you present. But what I wanted to talk about is how does it connect with like the body image aspect of it? Like being on TV all the time and also being so aware of your physique, like how does it?
It is tough. It's one thing I feel like some independent wrestlers are not ready for when they jump to a TV wrestling, is I just know like on Twitter and social media, everybody's gonna talk about everything about you, whether it's the most minor thing. And the funny thing is, you'll get one tweet out of a bajillion that'd be like, oh, he's got skinny legs. And you're like, like this motherfucker, you can't like, you think about it forever, but I'm saying, but I've learned to get used to it. It is what it is. I'm confident in my appearance and all that kind of stuff. So if anyone wants to talk shit, they can talk shit. Usually it's the women I feel worse for because people can be very brutal on them about just being shitty about their looks and this and that. And like the first thing I was gonna say, I was like, all right, bring your ass on TV. Let's put you on television every single week. And like when some people go home and if they're not working out or dieting, like everything I do is based off of wrestling. Like I would like to think when I'm done wrestling, I'm still gonna, watch my diet and train and stuff like that, but definitely not as hard. Like I do all this stuff because I think that like I'm gonna have to be on TV and people are watching me, or whether, even if it's on YouTube and people are watching me, like I want to present the best package possible. And I do feel like just growing up watching the wrestling that I watched, all my favorite wrestlers were like big and jacked. So it's like, well, I kind of want to be like my favorite wrestlers. So that's kind of what I got. They're all way taller than me and way heavier than me. I'm a smaller version of that, but that was just kind of what I think is a pro wrestler is someone who's at least like in pretty good shape. So that's why I've always taken it seriously. And just over time, I just grew to fall in love with it. Like I do really enjoy training and working out and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's given me a lot of like life discipline. Like no matter whether I'm, like I said, whether I'm hurting, whether I'm sick, whether like I try to always do my best to eat right, live a healthy life. And I guess that's another thing. I know pro wrestling is a little bit of an unhealthy life. So like, it's another thing I try to harp on. Like, I know there's wrestlers who've succeeded not being in the best of shape, and sometimes that it comes into their promos, where they talk about like, I'm not in shape and this guy, but I'm still doing better than him. Like, I get that. My biggest thing is you should at very least exercise because wrestling's gonna like, it's gonna like f you up eventually.
At least you need cardio.
Yeah, like you're gonna like, you need some strength in your knees so you don't blow out your ACL. You need some strength in your back and neck so you don't, like, at the very least you should be exercising just to like protect yourself, because like I think 99.9% of wrestlers, pro wrestlers, will say like, this is a sport. Like we're not like, You can call it fake, you can call it whatever you want, but what we do, we train like athletes, we get hurt like athletes, we have a diet like athletes, we have to do all the things other athletes do. Every other athlete does some sort of strength training and conditioning. And not everybody has to be bodybuilders, not everyone has to be super jacked, but you should be doing some sort of strength training just to keep your body together, because wrestling's brutal. If you plan on doing it, I've been doing it for 17 years now. If you plan on doing this for a long time, like, I hate to say it, it's gonna catch up to you eventually. Eventually those bumps are gonna catch up to you, so the best thing you can do is at least have some strength and conditioning in your body, so the brutality of wrestling, like, your body can absorb it a little bit better, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You've mostly been on REH and Collision lately, and we also know that you've been doing some backstage work. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your backstage work?
So when I was let go by WWE, I was kind of doing the independents, and I was doing some shots here and there with AEW, and just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And I did the independents for 10 years. And then when I went back to the independents after 5 years at WWE, it just wasn't really hitting the same, And again, just thinking of like the brutality of like wrestling and like what you're putting your body through. And mind you, I was getting paid exceptionally more money this time around in the indies than I was the first time around. But even that wasn't quite cutting it for me. Like I just really wasn't feeling it. And wrestlers always say, like, when you stop like feeling that like enjoyment from it, like, you should probably stop doing it, because you're gonna hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, And I don't want to be going into matches kind of like haphazard about it, So I reached out to my brother, who's a producer at WWE, and they got me in for like a tryout thing. So it was me and Curtis Axel were trying out as producers. We were there for a couple months. It was going great. Everything was awesome. I really enjoyed the job. The only thing that was a little tough is obviously producers in WWE can't wrestle anymore. Like, once you do that job, and a few people ask me, like, are you ready to stop wrestling? And I was like, you know what, like, I think I am. Maybe. I think I was lying. In my head, I was lying. I was lying to myself. I was lying to myself, and I was lying to them. But I was just kind of like, you know what, like, let's at least see how this is. Maybe you do it for a year or two, and if you're like, I really want to wrestle, then just go back to wrestling. It's not a big deal. I did that for a little bit. Right around that time, if people remember, there was some scandals in WWE. Some bad things happened in upper management, and because of that, they were like, hey, we're not going to do any new hires, because some of the people who I was reporting to in that job had to go away. So that department kind of was in a limbo for a little bit. So they said, hey, right now we're not going to be hiring people. Well, during that time, I was still wrestling for AEW. I remember like some people were like,
which was also a big thing.
Yeah, there was this weird thing where like I was like on a New Japan Strong, an NWA show. I was like on Raw as like a producer, and then like doing a dark AEW in Orlando. So I was kind of just like doing everything, and WWE knew about it.
Seen everywhere.
WWE knew about it. Like, it was one of the first things I said to them when I came back. I said, I have a couple like AEW bookings coming up, and they said, until you actually have this job, please keep all your commitments. So they were super cool about me still wrestling. And then obviously, so that kind of fell through, which was, it was unfortunate. I was looking forward to working with my brother again, which would have been really fun. But when I got offered my job here at AEW, Pat Buck was also a producer at WWE, and now he works here in AEW. And he mentioned to Tony, like, hey, like, Ariya was doing producer stuff at WWE. If you're ever interested, I think you could do that here too, because I feel like the producer training in WWE it's very intense. I feel like it definitely got me ready to do producing stuff here. It's a little bit more relaxed here, and in a good way. I'm not saying like it's just like whatever. Like it's just a little bit more relaxed here, where it's a little bit more like talent can kind of do what they want here. So it makes the job a little bit easier, but it definitely got me ready for it. So yeah, I was offered, and again, I didn't know that was a thing, that you can be a producer and a wrestler. So I said, oh yeah, I said that's the dream come true, because I knew every wrestler, I feel like, wants to stay in the business after they're done in ring, whether it's commentary, agent, working in TR, whatever it is, because you just grow to love this business. I'm accustomed to traveling, seeing all my friends. I get just as much enjoyment out of like helping produce a match and seeing them do it, and crowds going crazy and all this kind of stuff. Like it can be just as rewarding. So it's like, if you're not actually in there wrestling yourself, this is the next best thing, I feel like, for me personally. So getting into the producer stuff, and at first I was working with a lot of the women, and one thing that I really enjoy is I've been getting more of the women's wrestlers coming up to me and saying like, hey, I want you to produce one of my matches because I saw you work with so-and-so, and I thought that was great. Can you help me out with my match too? So that's been kind of nice, been doing that. So it's been like I said, it's the only thing that I find that can be second place rewarding as wrestling. And there's nothing's ever going to top wrestling yourself. Being out there in front of the crowd and all that stuff, nothing's ever going to beat that, top that. That's the best feeling. But I would say the next best feeling is helping other people and come. And like the thing is, like you can help. And once you like have some wrestling now, you can help anybody. I've done a bunch of Orange Cassidy. I think Orange Cassidy is one of the best wrestlers in the company. One of the best wrestlers. He's one of my favorite people to watch. And even he's like asked me like what do you think of this? What do you think of that? We sit there and we talk about this and that, and then go out there and he kills it like usual and come back like that was awesome. You know, like it's super fun. But then the other aspect of the job is sometimes you go out there and they might have a bad match, and you have to come back and you have to you have to powwow with them. And my producer philosophy was just like, what were the things I didn't like when I have a producer, you know? And I was never too big on them telling me exactly what to do, unless it's a direct order from Vince or a direct order from Tony Khan, which no talent ever fights against that. Like, other than the boss, it's not for me, this is from the boss, just do it. And most people do. But it's just, you know, if some things go wrong, you sit down, you talk about it. Like this is with like newer talent, you know, like, you know, we should have done this instead and try this next time. And then when you see them do it next time and it works, again, like that's a really like rewarding feeling. Or just seeing talent get better and better and better each match. The Renegade Twins, like I worked a lot with them, and Robin Renegade's had a couple singles matches recently, and like first one went all right, and then she did another one a little better and a little better, and I feel like, and I remember talking to them, I said, I think you guys need to do a couple singles matches, like do a few more singles matches, because like when you're doing tag matches, you got to share the time, you know, and that can be hard when it's two new people who need as much time as possible. So they've been doing a couple singles matches, and they've been going really well. So seeing talent get better and better and better, again, it's really rewarding to see, and just you can tell how much it means to them too. You know, they come back and like, you know, when you did a good job, and like, yeah, I did it, and it makes me really happy to see that. So it's a rewarding thing to seeing younger talent go, like just getting slowly better, because TV wrestling's hard. Being green on the independents and like going out there and fucking up in front of, you know, a couple hundred people, it's like not that big a deal. Like it happens, you know. But when you're on like national television or Ring of Honor or something, and everybody's seeing you, and and anybody can, any Joe Schmo from the other side of the world can be like, you fucking suck, you know, or something like that. Like it can be tough. So I can tell for greener talent sometimes, like that can be troubling. That like they know they didn't do too well, then they go back and look at their phone, and people are telling them they didn't do well, and so it's like, man, that can be a real, like mentally that can be really tough. So I always do my best to try to stay positive. I've never like yelled at a talent like, that was terrible, what the f*** you doing, blah blah. Like just, hey, like shit happens, let's work on it next time, you know. You're gonna have a million matches in your career, so don't worry about this one. Yeah, there's gonna be many more to come. So I try to, like I said, try to stay positive, you know. Because when I'm going back on when I said things I don't like other producers do, there's nothing worse than like, if you didn't do too well, you come through the curtain, you're sweaty, tired, trying to catch your breath, and all you're getting is just like lectured in your head. And you just want to be like, just give me like 2 minutes before you start ruining my life, you know? So I always try to stay more positive with my talent when they, you know, things they need to work on.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned women's wrestling too, because RH have been getting better and better and better at showcasing more women, and we just recently had a big women's main event on the pay-per-view, so it's great that you're, you know, doing your part and helping showcase women's wrestling in RH. And with RH, especially post-rebrand and post-acquisition, it's been a different show. It's been a different, you know, promotion. But of course, there's still this long history attached to it. So you get into work on RH. What does it mean to you? Do you feel the pressure of carrying this legendary promotion to success?
For Ring of Honor, yeah. Like we all have, like when you work in AEW, you get the Honor Club subscription for free. And it's funny going back and watching like old Ring of Honors. I go, these are all Hall of Famers, main eventers, like people who are literally been carrying the, you know, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, like all these guys who are now. And I always laugh. I go, man, there used to be a time where you could see these guys for like $20 in front of, with like 100 people, you know, like what? Like why are these so good wrestlers like not on TV their whole lives? It's funny to see that. But like, yeah, there's a lot of, I feel like pressure to keep it going. And I know some fans might think it's a little bit different now that it's within AEW, but in my head, I was kind of like obviously it's going to be different. It's not a standalone company now. Now it's within AEW. So I never understood why some people are upset that like AEW talent is on Ring of Honor.
Or
like,
vice versa.
Like, and the other, like, there's one narrative I want to put to bed is I cannot stand people who say, oh, Ring of Honor is just a new Dark. Like, Dark had a lot of independent talent on there. Yeah. A lot of the matches were just squash matches. There might be one or two of those on Ring of Honor, but I'm saying like, you are not getting Samoa Joe on AEW Dark.
And that like of all people, I'm the one to like never slender Dark. I love Dark.
And Dark was great on its own too.
I did Russian commentary for Dark for a Russian website for a good while, for like a year. And actually towards the end of Dark, there were actually longer matches. And,
great matches,
and there were some amazing matches on Dark. So if you're trying to insult our age by saying it's Dark,
people would just say that and they think, but I just said like, I was like, look, Dark had a lot more enhancement matches. There was a lot of quote unquote like filler matches and then a couple, bigger matches to kind of make it a thing. But I said these Ring of Honor matches have been amazing. I truly believe these are people who are just seeing clips online. And they're like, if you actually sit down and watch the Ring of Honor show, how hard everybody works, the amount of talent that's on it, like it's tenfold. It's really, really good. So I wish more people would give Ring of Honor a chance. I sound like a broken record because at first it was 205 Live, and now it's Ring of Honor. Like people just see short clips online. I think they make their opinions about it without actually being.
That's the case with so much wrestling criticism on the internet. People just being mad about things they didn't even watch.
Yeah, some of those Ring of Honor tapes. I mean, like AR Fox, Grand Metal League, guys like Blake Christian. Like there was really good talent that comes and goes throughout Ring of Honor like all the time. So to think that AEW doesn't like put any thought and care into it, like no, that's silly. Vikingo, one of the most over wrestlers in the industry right now, he's on Ring of Honor. Like any week you tune into Ring of Honor, like trust me, you're gonna get a couple matches that are gonna like blow your socks off.
Yeah, I've literally been saying in every video lately that RH has been putting out amazing product every week, consistently.
It was just recently, it was the Workhorsemen against Commander and Vikingo, and it was like a crazy match. So I was like, I never saw anything like that on Dark, so I don't know why people think one or the other, but I said, if you didn't get a chance, watch Ring of Honor. It's really good.
And if you don't get the chance, still watch it.
They'll watch it.
So we've been talking a lot about AEW and RH, so let's get a little more personal.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how your cultural background, being Persian, has also affected your presentation and your gimmick. And especially recently, we know that Iron Sheik passed away.
Yes.
And you put out a very heartfelt post about that.
Yeah.
And you said, and I quote, "So much of my career has been modeled after you." So do you want to talk about growing up with a role model like that? And
So obviously grew up in a Persian household. My parents came from Iran in like the late 70s, like right before the revolution really hit in Iran, before like Islamic law like really took over the government. So they came here, they knew they wanted to raise their family here. So I have two older brothers, Sean the wrestler, and I have another brother older than him. So the three of us were first generation Americans in our family. So even though we grew up in Minnesota, which is a very like white state, I grew up in a very foreign household, so there's a lot of things that just weren't, like all my friends who were like big into like football and basketball and sports, like I didn't really grow up with any of that because my parents didn't watch sports. I didn't really watch sports, so and then at a very young age I got into wrestling, so that just kind of took over. So there's a lot of things that were unique to my experience growing up that obviously other people in Minnesota didn't. So when I got into wrestling, at this point, my brother had already been on TV and he did the stuff with Muhammad Hassan, and he, everybody already knew that like, okay, he's Persian. So when I got into wrestling, I thought it'd be kind of stupid to just be completely different. Iron Sheik is the most legendary Persian wrestler of all time. I'm sure he'll always will be. So there's a lot of things that I used to steal his promo all the time. The Iran #1 USA, and it'd be twofold where like, some fans would boo. It's like, boo, you're saying that. And other fans would love it because they know I'm, throwing it to Iron Sheik, someone they grew up watching too, using the camel clutch, coming out with the headdress, like all that kind of stuff that I just feel like Iron Sheik kind of set the mold for Persian wrestlers. And then after that, everyone always takes a little bit inspiration. There's another wrestler called Invictus Cash, another Persian wrestler,
you've tagged with.
Yeah, who I've tagged with. There was a time where he was wearing like the curly-toed boots and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying everybody want to just go out and I'm just gonna steal his shtick and just be full on Iron Sheik, but you can't not help but borrow things from him because it's not like I'm just trying to steal his shtick so I can get over. I go, no, you're gonna show respect to the other Iranian wrestler who paved the way for you, So, and that's why my brother was Sheik Sean Daivari, I was Sheik Ariya Daivari. I enjoyed doing the Sheik stuff, and I kind of still wish I could do it, but the only problem was when I got to WWE and I was doing it, there were a lot of people who were kind of tweeting at me or tweeting at WWE about like, I can't believe they're still doing this like Middle Eastern bullshit, and you know, like why is he a bad guy and all that kind of stuff. And I totally get that. And I always credit Mustafa Ali. Like I think he did a very good job of being like he wouldn't shut up about the fact of being like, just because I'm Middle Eastern doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. And he's right. You don't have to be. I enjoy being a bad guy. I've always enjoyed being a heel. It's what I'm good at. I've done it my whole life. It just so happens that I'm also Persian too. So people always just put it together like, oh, you're the Middle Eastern bad guy. I go, can I just be a bad guy who happens to be Middle Eastern and also is like proud of his heritage and culture and wants to show it a little bit? But me being a bad guy has nothing to do with being Iranian. It's just I want to play a bad guy. That's what I'm good at. That's my role in wrestling. So it is something that I would like to do more of, and I do feel like wrestlers of different ethnicities are finally starting to get a little bit more, I don't want to say push, but just getting recognized more in wrestling. It's always been a global thing, but let's be honest, now finally we see a lot, you know, something like the LWO, like we're seeing a good Hispanic faction in WWE, you know, black wrestlers are getting a lot more representation and stuff like that, and that's a good thing. So I was hoping eventually to kind of bring back more of like my Persian culture, and I don't want to do it where I have to be a good guy in order to do it. That's the only thing that I'm like, what does it matter? Good guy, bad guy, like that doesn't change who I am as a person. So there's a little bit of that, just kind of walking that fine line. I get it. And you know, some people might be offended by it, some people not. It really, everyone's different, so that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because it's actually something I wanted to ask, and you kind of answered the question, because it's this very much like foreign bad guy trope that a lot of people think is outdated. But like you said, you know, it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm a bad guy because I'm Persian. You know, it's not a connection like that.
100%. Me and Tony Nese can do the personal trainer thing and talk about people being out of shape and this and that. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm Middle Eastern. But if I want, you know, Farsi on my trunks or something like that, like that has nothing to do. But people just tie those together, you know, like, and I'll be the first to admit that I did lean into that trope at times. There definitely was times where, you know, like, yeah, America sucks, blah, you know, and like try to get that heat. But like, it's not something that I would, it can be lazy if you just do that forever, you know, eventually, like, that's kind of your foot in the door. That's how you introduce maybe this foreign character, but then over time they can change and evolve, and it's not always just about that. And I feel like I said, I got a lot of tweets and people telling me, like, you know, so eventually I was like, I'm not going to bother fighting this. And that, so the funny thing is, when I switched to the Daivari De Niro character, that was still supposed to be like a play on Persian people, but it was more like just current day Persian people, like people in like Los Angeles, they all drive like white BMWs and have like these flashy shirts and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like, I just feel like it's dumb to go against something that you like naturally have, you know, like I am Persian, I look very Persian. And
with the whole like screw America thing, I feel like it's also about like actions and reactions when you work with the crowd, and when you do wrestling, you work with the crowd all the time.
Yeah, right.
And it's like there's still always going to be people who are going to want to like chant USA at you, so you might as well, you know, push back on that.
But I mean, my favorite thing is like I would do it on the indies and this and that, and you know, get the chants and the boos and this and that, and go sell something at the gimmick table, and you'd have so many fans coming up to me like, I was just booing you just because it's fun to be the bad guy. I think it's awesome what you're doing. I love the magic carpet, all that kind of shit. So I go like, yeah, most people get it. This is a show. Like, I always wondered, like, are people writing letters to NCIS every single week being like, this week you got another Middle Eastern bad guy on your show, blah, blah, blah. You're making us all look bad. Like, it's just, that's what American television is. So like, if you go watch wrestling in Iran, maybe it'll be like, that's the other thing too, is sometimes American wrestlers go to foreign countries and they'll ham that up, and they're the bad guy American in that foreign country. So it's like, it really just matters where you are for that.
It's literally, it's so true, because me being Eastern European, like, they're literally, my home promotion that they started at, there was a guy who was not American in any way, but he was doing an American gimmick.
Red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue ties, and he was the bad guy. And like, I guess, you know, it's just gonna take decades, if not centuries, to completely eradicate any kind of stereotype.
Especially in this day and age, there's just so much silly, funny stuff in wrestling that I'm sometimes blown away how serious people take it sometimes, you know, like.
And talking about silly, funny stuff, like you said when you were doing the flying carpet thing, there's definitely a comedy aspect to the foreign bad guy trope, right?
Of course, and that's, I think that's how you kind of make it a little bit more acceptable. They were like when I watch like Persian comedians, stand-up comedians, like most of their jokes are poking fun at funny old Persian tropes, you know? So I go, so that's how and when people aren't educated about it, that's when they might think like, oh, it's racist or it's something like that, when it's not. I go, if you actually understood Persian culture, you understand it's not at all. It's just me trying to be funny, you know? Like, that's asking a lot of people to understand every other culture in America, which I feel like a lot of people don't understand most other cultures other than their own, so, but yeah.
Yeah, and circling back to comedy wrestling a little bit, you mentioned Orange Cassidy even here today, and he's definitely one of the biggest stars in AEW, and he very much is a comedy wrestler. And so for you being someone who obviously takes wrestling very seriously, you have a great wrestling mind, and you're so like peculiar about it, but also doing comedy tropes, where does the balance lie between taking it seriously and not taking yourself too seriously?
Yeah, so for not taking yourself too seriously is, again, another big piece of advice I would give a lot of young wrestlers, because sometimes you get asked to do things that you're kind of like, this is gonna make me look weak, this is gonna make me look dumb, but I go like, this is pro wrestling. It's just a big show. Like, it's not real. Like, so I get that.
Underwear theater.
So there are times, like me and Tony Nese be like, is this too funny? Is this too much comedy? And then like you think about some of your favorite wrestlers, you know, like Stone Cold and Triple H. Like, man, they were like serious. They would, you know, beat the shit out of people and, you know, real serious promos. I go, they also did a lot of funny stuff. They did some of the most hilarious, some of the most hilarious moments of the Attitude Era involved some of the toughest guys. You know, like Undertaker might be the only person I can think of who maybe didn't do a lot of comedy stuff. But other than that, like...
But then Kane did, though.
Yeah, but I'm saying Kane, Mick Foley, like every serious wrestler at some point has done some sort of comedy or this and that. So I think it is all really time and place. And Orange Cassidy actually, I think, is a perfect example of like, he's kind of the opposite, where it's like a serious wrestler, time and place, do some comedy. He's a comedy wrestler, but when it's time for him to like wrestle, like when he wrestled Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door last year, like that match was amazing. Like after that, like, I don't know how anybody could say anything about Orange Cassidy just saying like, oh, he's just a comedy wrestler. Like, if you saw that match with Will Ospreay, like, hell no, he's a fucking amazing technical wrestler who just happens to be really funny too, which is the reason why I think he's so popular, because, you know, how many good wrestlers, so many good wrestlers today, but a good wrestler who's also funny and also has a unique gimmick, that's the reason why I think he's like a big catch in pro wrestling today.
Circling back to your current situation, like you said, you're dealing with an injury, and we all hope that everything works out in your favor. So just as a little bit of a positive prediction, whenever you're back full-time and fully healed, what's next? What are we expecting from you?
Keep tagging with Tony Nese. I feel like we can have some tag titles eventually, you know, whether it's in Ring of Honor, whether it's AEW. That's kind of my big wrestling goal, is to be a tag team champion with Tony Nese, because every time we tag, there's always people telling us how good we are, how good we look together, how well we gel together, and we're actually friends. You know, there are some tag teams who are not.
We actually like each other.
There are some tag teams who are actually they just work together and that's it. Like me and Tony are actually friends. We talk outside of wrestling. Whenever our wrestling careers are over, I'm guaranteed we're still going to stay in touch. You know, so winning tag titles with your tag partner and your actual friend, that's a big goal of mine. So hopefully somewhere in the future that comes true.
Hopefully we see that happen soon. And thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
Thank you for being here. I'll put all the links to Ariya's social media in the video description down below. And in the meanwhile, give this video a like if you had a good time. Subscribe, tap the notification bell to never miss an upload. And until next time, goodbye. Awesome, perfect, wonderful. Thank you so much.
I feel like sometimes I talk too much.
You talk too much. Never shut up.